Hello and welcome to our channel. If you're someone who loves exploring global geopolitics, economic power shifts, and the hidden stories behind the world's biggest players, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating and game-changing topic: Qatar's bold move towards BRICS Plus, its rising influence in the Russia-China sphere, and how this is shaking up the global order. This tiny yet ultra-rich nation is making some strategic power moves, creating a headache for the West while unlocking huge opportunities for the global South. What does this mean for the future of energy markets, world diplomacy, and financial power? Stick with us till the end, because this story is more than just politics. It's about how the world is shifting right before our eyes. Before we jump in, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more eye-opening, in-depth content on global affairs, economics, and power shifts. Let's build a community of curious minds who love learning about the forces shaping our world. Qatar, the richest country per capita, is making bold moves on the global stage. From being a close Western ally, Qatar is now strategically aligning itself with BRICS Plus, Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and new potential members like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Iran. This shift is causing major concerns in the West, shaking up global geopolitics, and creating massive opportunities for the global South. In this video, we dive deep into: why is Qatar shifting towards BRICS Plus? How is Qatar's energy dominance giving it leverage over Europe and the US? What does Qatar's growing relationship with China and Russia mean for the global economy? How is Qatar challenging Western dominance in global trade and finance? What role does Qatar play in reshaping the multipolar world order? How will this impact BRICS nations, the Middle East, and the global South? Qatar is not just an oil-rich Gulf state anymore. It's a rising global powerhouse. By leveraging its LNG, or liquefied natural gas, dominance, massive foreign investments, and independent foreign policy, Qatar is playing a smart game that benefits both BRICS Plus and its long-term national interests. But how will the US and Europe react to this shift? And what does this mean for global energy markets and economic power dynamics? Watch till the end to find out. At first, let's see the current geopolitical shift and recent developments in Qatari foreign policy, how they're slowly shifting towards the BRICS Plus bloc. Qatar, a nation renowned for its vast natural gas reserves and strategic geopolitical positioning, has been adeptly navigating the complex landscape of international alliances. In recent years, there has been a discernible shift in Qatar's foreign policy, indicating a closer alignment with the BRICS Plus nations, particularly Russia and China. This realignment presents both opportunities and challenges, not only for Qatar, but also for its traditional Western allies. The BRICS consortium, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has been expanding its influence, with several countries expressing interest in joining its ranks. Notably, nations such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Iran have been invited to join the bloc, signaling a shift towards a more multipolar global order. While Qatar has not formally applied for BRICS membership, its deepening ties with key BRICS nations, especially Russia and China, suggest a strategic pivot. This alignment is evident in various sectors, including energy, finance, and diplomacy. China has emerged as a pivotal partner for Qatar, particularly in the energy sector. In November 2022, Qatar Energy inked a landmark 27-year agreement with China's Sinopec to supply 4 million tons of liquefied natural gas annually. This deal underscores China's growing demand for energy and Qatar's role as a reliable supplier. Beyond energy, Qatar and China have collaborated in infrastructure and technology. The Qatar Investment Authority has invested in various Chinese ventures, reflecting a mutual interest in strengthening economic ties. Qatar's relationship with Russia has seen significant growth, particularly in investment and political cooperation. As of 2024, Qatar's investments in Russia amounted to approximately $13 billion, highlighting the depth of their economic partnership. Politically, Qatar has maintained open channels with Russia, even acting as a mediator in conflicts where Russia is a key stakeholder. This diplomatic engagement enhances Qatar's role as a regional peacemaker and bolsters its geopolitical significance. Qatar's pivot towards BRICS Plus nations presents a nuanced challenge for its Western allies. Traditionally, Qatar has been a close partner of the United States and European countries, especially in defense and energy sectors. Its growing ties with Russia and China could be perceived as a move to diversify its alliances, potentially reducing Western influence in the region. For Europe, which has been seeking alternatives to Russian energy, Qatar's strengthened relationship with Russia might complicate efforts to secure independent energy supplies. However, Qatar has consistently demonstrated its commitment to being a reliable energy partner to Europe, as evidenced by its LNG agreements with various European nations. Qatar's engagement with BRICS Plus offers mutual benefits. For BRICS nations, Qatar provides a strategic partner with substantial financial resources and a pivotal geographic location bridging East and West. For Qatar, aligning with BRICS Plus diversifies its economic partnerships and enhances its geopolitical leverage. Moreover, this alignment resonates with the aspirations of the Global South, as it seeks to establish a more balanced global order. Qatar's collaboration with BRICS Plus can contribute to initiatives aimed at sustainable development, energy security, and economic diversification across developing nations. Qatar's strategic shift towards closer ties with BRICS Plus nations, particularly Russia and China, reflects its adaptive foreign policy in a rapidly changing global landscape. While this move presents challenges for traditional Western alliances, it also offers opportunities for Qatar to play a more influential role on the world stage. By balancing its relationships with both Western and BRICS nations, Qatar positions itself as a central player in fostering global cooperation and development. Share your views. What are your thoughts on Qatar's shift towards BRICS? Will this create a new global order or intensify tensions with the West? Let us know in the comments below. Stay tuned, because this one is going to be big. Now, let's get started. At first, let's see the current geopolitical shift and recent developments in Qatari foreign policy, how they're slowly shifting towards the BRICS Plus bloc. Qatar, a nation renowned for its vast natural gas reserves and strategic geopolitical positioning, has been adeptly navigating the complex landscape of international alliances. In recent years, there has been a discernible shift in Qatar's foreign policy, indicating a closer alignment with the BRICS Plus nations, particularly Russia and China. This realignment presents both opportunities and challenges, not only for Qatar but also for its traditional Western allies. The BRICS consortium, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has been expanding its influence, with several countries expressing interest in joining its ranks. Notably, nations such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Iran have been invited to join the bloc, signaling a shift towards a more multipolar global order. While Qatar has not formally applied for BRICS membership, its deepening ties with key BRICS nations, especially Russia and China, suggest a strategic pivot. This alignment is evident in various sectors, including energy, finance, and diplomacy. Strengthening ties with China. China has emerged as a pivotal partner for Qatar, particularly in the energy sector. In November 2022, Qatar Energy inked a landmark 27-year agreement with China's Sinopec to supply 4 million tons of liquefied natural gas annually. This deal underscores China's growing demand for energy and Qatar's role as a reliable supplier. Beyond energy, Qatar and China have collaborated in infrastructure and technology. The Qatar Investment Authority has invested in various Chinese ventures, reflecting a mutual interest in strengthening economic ties. Deepening relations with Russia. Qatar's relationship with Russia has seen significant growth, particularly in investment and political cooperation. As of 2024, Qatar's investments in Russia amounted to approximately $13 billion, highlighting the depth of their economic partnership. Politically, Qatar has maintained open channels with Russia, even acting as a mediator in conflicts where Russia is a key stakeholder. This diplomatic engagement enhances Qatar's role as a regional peacemaker and bolsters its geopolitical significance. Implications for Europe and the West. Qatar's pivot towards BRICS Plus nations presents a nuanced challenge for its Western allies. Traditionally, Qatar has been a close partner of the United States and European countries, especially in defense and energy sectors. Its growing ties with Russia and China could be perceived as a move to diversify its alliances, potentially reducing Western influence in the region. For Europe, which has been seeking alternatives to Russian energy, Qatar's strengthened relationship with Russia might complicate efforts to secure independent energy supplies. However, Qatar has consistently demonstrated its commitment to being a reliable energy partner to Europe, as evidenced by its LNG agreements with various European nations. A win-win scenario for Qatar and BRICS. Plus, Qatar's engagement with BRICS Plus offers mutual benefits. For BRICS nations, Qatar provides a strategic partner with substantial financial resources and a pivotal geographic location bridging East and West. For Qatar, aligning with BRICS Plus diversifies its economic partnerships and enhances its geopolitical leverage. Moreover, this alignment resonates with the aspirations of the Global South as it seeks to establish a more balanced global order. Qatar's collaboration with BRICS Plus can contribute to initiatives aimed at sustainable development, energy security, and economic diversification across developing nations. Qatar's strategic shift towards closer ties with BRICS Plus nations, particularly Russia and China, reflects its adaptive foreign policy in a rapidly changing global landscape. While this move presents challenges for traditional Western alliances, it also offers opportunities for Qatar to play a more influential role on the world stage. By balancing its relationships with both Western and BRICS nations, Qatar positions itself as a central player in fostering global cooperation and development. Now, let's introduce Qatar. Qatar, the small but mighty powerhouse of the Middle East. Qatar, a small peninsula in the Arabian Gulf, is one of the most fascinating success stories of modern times. Despite its tiny size, approximately 11,500 square kilometers, about the size of Connecticut, USA, it holds immense wealth and geopolitical influence. With a per capita income of $128,000, Qatar is the richest country in the world, surpassing even the USA, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. But Qatar's importance goes beyond its wealth. It is a key player in global energy markets, a diplomatic mediator, and an influential soft power force through its media, investments, and sports diplomacy. Its ability to navigate regional rivalries, Western alliances, and emerging markets makes it a case study in how a small nation can wield outsized power on the world stage. How did Qatar, once a poor desert economy dependent on pearling and fishing, become a powerful global player? How does it maintain its independence despite being surrounded by powerful neighbors like Saudi Arabia and Iran? And what role does its culture, geography, and history play in its global standing? This is the story of Qatar, a nation that proves size does not determine influence. Qatar's historical roots, from nomadic tribes to a global power. The history of Qatar dates back over 4,000 years, with evidence of human settlements from the Bronze Age. Early inhabitants were nomadic Bedouins, traders, and seafarers who relied on fishing, pearling, and commerce across the Arabian Gulf. By the 18th century, the Al Thani family, originally a Bedouin clan, established dominance over the region. The strategic location of Qatar, sitting at the crossroads of Persian, Indian, and Ottoman trade routes, made it an important stop for merchants. However, Qatar remained a small and relatively poor emirate, overshadowed by neighboring Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. The discovery of oil and gas in the 20th century changed everything. In 1916, Qatar became a British protectorate, allowing Britain to oversee its defense and foreign policy. The British withdrawal from the Gulf in 1971 led to Qatar's full independence, and the nation started carving its own identity. The real transformation began in 1995, when Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani overthrew his father in a peaceful coup and embarked on a modernization drive leveraging Qatar's massive gas reserves. Qatar's geography has played a pivotal role in shaping its economic and political strategies. Located in the Arabian Gulf, Qatar is surrounded by Saudi Arabia to the south and Iran across the Gulf to the north. It has one of the largest natural gas reserves in the world, known as the North Field, which it shares with Iran. Its peninsular geography gives it easy access to global shipping routes, making it a key hub for energy exports. Despite being a desert country, Qatar has turned its natural challenges into advantages by using desalination, artificial irrigation, and advanced agricultural technology. Qatar has the third largest natural gas reserves in the world, but what makes it unique is how efficiently it exports and utilizes its resources. It is the largest exporter of liquefied natural gas, or LNG, supplying major economies like Japan, China, India, and Europe. Unlike oil, which faces long-term decline, natural gas is still in high demand, especially in Europe after the Russia-Ukraine war, which led to higher European dependence on Qatari gas. Qatar has strategically invested its wealth outside its borders to create long-term financial security. It owns Harrods, London Shard, and major stakes in Volkswagen, Barclays, and Tiffany. And company Qatar has also invested heavily in luxury hotels, financial institutions, and sports clubs, including Paris Saint-Germain, or PSG. Additionally, it has built state-of-the-art infrastructure, including Hamad International Airport, Education City, and Lusail City. Qatar's economic strategy ensures that even if gas revenues decline, it will continue to generate wealth from global investments. Despite being a small nation surrounded by powerful players, Qatar has crafted an independent foreign policy that gives it global leverage. In 2017, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and Egypt imposed a blockade on Qatar, cutting off diplomatic and trade ties. The main reasons were Al Jazeera's independent journalism, which exposed corruption in Arab regimes, Qatar's relationship with Iran, seen as a threat to Saudi Arabia, and Qatar's support for Islamist groups, particularly during the Arab Spring. However, Qatar outmaneuvered the blockade, strengthening ties with Turkey and Iran and proving its resilience. By 2021, the blockade was lifted, and Qatar emerged stronger than before. Qatar controls Al Jazeera, the most influential Arabic news network, which challenges Saudi and UAE narratives. It played a crucial role in broadcasting the Arab Spring, influencing uprisings across the Middle East. Qatar has positioned itself as a neutral mediator in global conflicts. It has hosted US-Taliban peace talks, leading to the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, Iran nuclear negotiations, and mediation between Hamas and Israel. This diplomatic neutrality makes Qatar a valuable ally to both the West and the Middle East. Culture and society. A blend of tradition and modernity. Traditional Qatari culture. Qatar is deeply rooted in Bedouin traditions, with a rich cultural heritage in falconry, which is a national sport, camel racing, and dhow boat sailing. Islam is central to Qatari life, but the country follows a more progressive interpretation compared to Saudi Arabia. Modernization and openness. Qatar is more socially liberal than its Gulf neighbors, allowing women's education and workforce participation. It is home to Education City, which hosts branches of top Western universities like Georgetown and Northwestern. Unlike Saudi Arabia, Qatar allows limited freedom of expression, although criticism of the ruling family remains off-limits. Sports diplomacy. Qatar on the world stage. Qatar uses sports to enhance its global reputation, hosted FIFA World Cup 2022, investing over $200 billion in infrastructure, owns Paris Saint-Germain, using football to promote Qatari influence, hosts Formula 1, ATP tennis, and MotoGP, boosting tourism and branding. By aligning itself with global sports, Qatar ensures that its brand and influence extend beyond just energy and politics. The future of Qatar. Qatar's transformation from a desert backwater to a global power is a remarkable achievement. Through economic foresight, diplomatic neutrality, and strategic investments, it has ensured long-term prosperity. Despite challenges like labor rights issues, geopolitical tensions, and global energy transitions, Qatar remains one of the most influential small nations in the world. Its success proves that size does not define power. Vision, strategy, and ambition do. As the world shifts toward a post-oil economy, Qatar's next challenge is to sustain its dominance. If history is any indication, Qatar will continue to punch far above its weight in global affairs. Qatar, the world's richest nation, and its remarkable transformation. Introduction. In the heart of the Middle East lies Qatar, a nation so wealthy that its per capita income stands at a staggering $128,000, higher than the United States, Singapore, and even its affluent neighbors, like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Glittering skyscrapers, sprawling shopping malls, luxury supercars, and cutting-edge infrastructure make Qatar a modern-day oasis of prosperity. But the Qatar we see today is a far cry from its past. A little over a century ago, Qatar was an impoverished desert land, offering little beyond searing heat, hunger, and hardship. In the early 20th century, it was among the poorest nations in the Arabian Peninsula, overshadowed by the more prominent powers of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. So how did Qatar, once a barren land of fishermen and pearl divers, rise to become the wealthiest nation per capita? How did it escape the fate of other oil-rich yet struggling countries like Venezuela and Angola? And why do Saudi Arabia and the UAE harbor resentment toward Qatar? This is a story of extraordinary transformation, driven by geopolitical acumen, economic foresight, and bold leadership. It is a tale unlike that of any other Arab nation, a saga of wealth, influence, and global ambition. The early years, Qatar, before oil and gas. Qatar's history as a modern nation begins in 1916, when its ruler, Sheikh Abdullah bin Jassim Al Thani, signed a treaty with Britain, making it a British protectorate. In return for British military protection from potential land or sea attacks, Qatar had to surrender a share of its natural resources to the British. Back then, Qatar had little to offer. Its economy revolved around pearling, fishing, and small-scale trade. But with the collapse of the natural pearl market in the 1930s, due to Japan's invention of cultured pearls, Qatar was left in economic ruin. Hunger and poverty gripped the land, forcing many Qataris to migrate to nearby Bahrain and Saudi Arabia for work. Then came a discovery that would change Qatar's fate forever. The turning point, discovery of oil, and the beginnings of wealth. In 1940, Qatar discovered its first oil field, marking the start of its economic transformation. By the 1960s, oil production was in full swing, gradually improving living standards, but Qatar remained far behind its neighbors like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait, who had larger oil reserves and had already begun building wealthier societies. Qatar finally gained independence from Britain in 1971, and while oil revenue helped stabilize the economy, it was not enough to catapult Qatar into extreme wealth. The country's true turning point came from a hidden treasure lying beneath its waters, a treasure that even oil giants like Shell initially ignored. The game changer, the discovery of the North Field gas reserve. In 1977, Shell Oil Company discovered the North Field, the largest natural gas field in the world, stretching from Qatar's offshore waters into Iran. But there was a problem. At the time, natural gas was not considered highly profitable because it required pipelines to transport. Since Qatar was far from major gas-consuming markets, there was no easy way to export its gas. For almost 2 decades, this vast gas treasure remained untouched and forgotten. That was until a young, ambitious Qatari prince decided to take a bold gamble. The rise of Sheikh Hamad, a visionary leader's gamble on gas. In 1995, Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani staged a bloodless coup, overthrowing his own father to become the Emir of Qatar. South Korea and Europe. Billions of dollars poured into the country, making Qatar one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The Qatar Investment Authority, turning gas wealth into global power. Many resource-rich nations fail to manage their wealth properly, think Venezuela and Nigeria, which have squandered their oil riches due to corruption and mismanagement. Qatar avoided this fate by establishing the Qatar Investment Authority in 2005, a sovereign wealth fund that strategically invested its gas wealth in global assets. Today, Qatar owns luxury hotels, offices and apartment buildings in London and New York. Major stakes in companies like Volkswagen, Barclays Bank and Tiffany & Company, Russia's largest oil company, Rosneft, and Paris Saint-Germain, one of Europe's biggest football clubs. This strategy ensured that even if gas revenues declined in the future, Qatar would still have a diversified economy and global financial influence. Qatar's geopolitical strategy, Al Jazeera and soft power. Money alone doesn't bring power, influence matters too. Sheikh Hamad knew that for Qatar to stand out, it needed a global voice. In 1996, Qatar launched Al Jazeera, which soon became the most powerful Arabic news network. Unlike traditional state-controlled Arab media, Al Jazeera was critical of authoritarian regimes, giving Qatar immense geopolitical leverage. During the Arab Spring from 2010 to 2012, Al Jazeera played a key role in broadcasting anti-government protests, which infuriated Saudi Arabia and the UAE, leading them to ban the channel. The Gulf Crisis: why Saudi Arabia and the UAE hate Qatar. Qatar's rise has not been without enemies. In 2017, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Egypt severed diplomatic ties with Qatar, imposing a blockade. Their demands? Shut down Al Jazeera, cut ties with Iran, and close the Turkish military base in Qatar. Qatar refused. The blockade failed as Turkey and Iran stepped in to support Qatar, and by 2021, the Gulf nations were forced to lift the blockade. Future challenges and the road ahead. Despite its economic success, Qatar faces several challenges: labor rights controversies, geopolitical risks, and energy transition. The world is shifting away from fossil fuels, but gas demand remains strong, securing Qatar's dominance for at least another 50 years. Conclusion: the unstoppable rise of Qatar. Qatar's meteoric rise from a struggling desert land to the richest nation on earth is a testament to visionary leadership, strategic investments, and geopolitical acumen. Unlike many resource-rich nations that squander their wealth, Qatar has transformed its natural gas riches into lasting economic power. With continued investments in sports, finance, infrastructure, and diplomacy, Qatar is set to remain a global powerhouse for decades to come. The question now is not whether Qatar will remain rich, but how it will use its wealth and influence in the future. One thing is certain: Qatar's story is far from over.